everyone, welcome back to Ashleigh F1. I know it's been a while, but we're back. We are back. I'm Ashleigh Arendse, and in today's video I'll be doing the season so far. Okay, so before I actually get into this video, I just wanted to apologize. It has been quite some time since I uploaded a new video, like 2 months I think. So yeah, I do apologize. Schoolwork has been keeping me busy, and if I'm honest, I've also been procrastinating, watching Netflix, scrolling on Instagram. So what can I say? I'm only human. There's a lot of work that goes into making videos, and honestly I didn't have the energy to edit and film and stuff, but we're back nonetheless. Hope you guys missed me. So basically in this video I'll just be talking about what's been going on in the season so far. I'll give you an update on everything that's happened over the past few months so that you're all caught up before round 10 at Silverstone. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to be discussing are each of the races that have taken place so far. So far there have been 9 rounds, and I did do a race review on the first race of the season at Bahrain, but I will also just be touching on that one very briefly. If you want to see like a full review on that race, you can watch my previous video. Okay, so the first race of the season was at Bahrain, and the main thing to take away from that race was that Max lost the race due to an undercut from Hamilton. So that was after the first pit stop, and then at the second pit stop Max pitted after Hamilton, a little bit later than Hamilton, which offered him like a younger tire basically. And towards the end of the race Max was chasing Hamilton, and on lap 53 Max actually overtook Hamilton and took the lead. However, he did it off the track, which he isn't allowed to do. If all 4 of your wheels are off the track, you have to give the place back. So he gave the place back after turn 10 down the straight. So the season opener, Hamilton won, which surprisingly, it isn't actually a popular thing. Like, Hamilton doesn't usually win the season opener, but yeah, Hamilton won the first round. The next race was at Imola in Italy, and the main thing to take from this race was the massive crash between Valtteri and George. So Valtteri Bottas is in the Mercedes and George Russell is in the Williams, and there's already a big battle between these two drivers off of the track, which only amplified the crash in the race, because there's a very big battle for the second seat at Mercedes. But basically Valtteri Bottas was going down the straight, and George Russell in the Williams was about to overtake Valtteri, but Valtteri swerved a little bit. It was a very, very subtle movement, but when you're going down a straight, you don't swerve, especially when another driver is about to overtake. So Valtteri swerved a little bit, which George noticed, so he also swerved. But because he was towards the edge of the track, his wheel got onto like a wet part of the track, or it was on the grass, and he basically spun into Valtteri, and then they went and crashed out of the race. So even after the crash, George walked up to Valtteri Bottas, who was still in his car, and he basically hit him on his helmet, and then Valtteri pulled the middle finger on him. So yeah, it was pretty hectic. But yeah, as I mentioned, there is a lot of off-track battling between those two. Even if they don't want to admit it, there is. So I think that just made the crash even more emotional and like extreme for them. But besides that big crash, which was like the main talking point of the race, Max Verstappen won that race. Hamilton came second after fighting through the field from P9 all the way up to P2, and Lando Norris finished off the podium. Round 3 was at Portugal, and if I'm honest, there's not much you can really take from this race. It was pretty much an easy win for Hamilton, so that's all I really have to say. Then round 4 was at Spain, and Verstappen took the lead on lap 1 into the first corner. However, Hamilton did a 2-stop and Verstappen did a 1-stop, so it is basically a repeat of Hungary 2019. Towards the end of the race, Hamilton, with fresher tyres, overtook Verstappen and won the race. Round 5 was at Monaco, and Charles Leclerc took pole position on the Saturday, which I wouldn't say was expected. That was quite a shock, to be honest. I mean, if you don't watch Formula 1, hearing that Ferrari got pole position probably doesn't sound like a big shock, but they haven't been doing great, so them getting pole was quite a step forward for them, I would say. But also looking at the previous races before Monaco and also the races after, it's clear to see that the street tracks definitely suit them a lot better, especially in qualifying. So yeah, Charles Leclerc got pole position in the Ferrari on the Saturday. However, on the Sunday he had an issue. It might have been gearbox related, I'm not 100% sure, but he had an issue and he wasn't able to start the race. So basically Max Verstappen started on pole position, but he didn't actually start in the first position box. He still started in P2. Red Bull were given the opportunity to move to the first position spot, but they chose to stay in the second position for reasons I don't really know. I don't think it would have made much difference, and Verstappen kept the lead anyways, so yeah. There were just two main things to take from this race, and basically the biggest talking point was Bottas's slow pit stop. Bottas has had a lot of bad luck in the pit lane, but this one was particularly bad. He basically came into the pits and his front right wheel nut wouldn't come off, so basically the tire was just stuck on the car. They couldn't do anything. The what's the thing called? The wheel gun, it wouldn't take the wheel nut off, so he just had to retire from the race. I think it took them a long time to get that tire off. It was definitely the longest pit stop in history. And then the second talking point from the Monaco Grand Prix is Lando Norris lapping Daniel Ricciardo. So if you didn't know, Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo are teammates currently in McLaren, and Daniel has done really well in the past in Formula 1, and he is seen as one of the best drivers on the current grid. However, he has been struggling quite a lot this season, especially in qualifying. He tends to bring it back in the race. However, at the Monaco Grand Prix, his teammate Lando Norris ended up lapping him. And I think what makes it even worse is the fact that it was at Monaco, which is one of Daniel's favorite, I think it is Daniel's favorite track, and he did win at Monaco in 2018. So we know that he has the potential to win at a track like Monaco, so the fact that he was lapped by his teammate was a little bit disappointing. So yeah, that was pretty heartbreaking, especially for the Daniel Ricciardo fans. Even Lando waved goodbye to him, so yeah, that was quite sad. Round 6 was in Azerbaijan. Yeah, I can't say it. Azerbaijan. Baku. Let's call it Baku. Round 6 was at Baku, and Charles Leclerc took pole position once again. As I mentioned, for the Monaco Grand Prix, Baku is also a street track, which I think that suited Ferrari a lot better, especially in qualifying. Obviously, it was sort of like back to reality during the race, but in qualifying, the Ferraris are really good at these street tracks. So yeah, Charles Leclerc took pole position at Baku, and this time he didn't have any issues on the Sunday, so he started on pole. So the main talking point of round 6 were the punctures that Stroll and Verstappen experienced down the main straight of the Baku circuit. It was a very strange thing to watch, especially down a straight. You wouldn't really expect something like that to happen. But yeah, basically both Stroll and Verstappen crashed down the straight because they got a rear tyre puncture, which actually cost Verstappen the win at Baku. There still isn't any evidence to show the reason for the punctures. It was sort of unexplainable. So that brought out a red flag, and Hamilton then was basically on the hunt to win against Sergio Perez in the second Red Bull seat. So Hamilton started P2 and Perez started on pole position during the restart. Hamilton got a really good start and he actually overtook Perez. However, he pressed a button which was behind his steering wheel, which prevented him from braking, I think. So he wasn't able to turn into the corner, he just went straight down and he locked up as well. So at this particular race, both protagonists for the championship, Hamilton and Verstappen, didn't score any points, and Perez went on to win the race. Sebastian Vettel finished P2 and Pierre Gasly finished P3. Of all the podiums, you probably wouldn't have expected that one, but yeah, that was the race result. And this particular Grand Prix was the race that finished Lewis Hamilton's 54 points finishing streak. So in 54 races before Baku, he scored points at every single race consecutively. So this was the first race where he finished outside of the points. Round 7 was at Paul Ricard in France, and I don't think anyone was expecting this race to be interesting in any way, shape or form. The Paul Ricard track is not particularly exciting, but the race was probably one of the best of the season so far. So basically at the start of the Grand Prix, Verstappen made a mistake into turn 1 and Hamilton took the lead of the Grand Prix. During the first pit stop, Max did the undercut on Lewis, which gave him the lead. However, he pitted again, which gave Lewis the lead back, but with Max on a brand new set of fresh tyres, he basically went on the charge and caught up to Lewis and overtook him towards the end of the race. I think one of the main things that I was looking at was before Verstappen actually caught up to Hamilton, he had to overtake Bottas, and Bottas could have defended a little bit better. Basically, as soon as Verstappen was behind Bottas, he lost it and Verstappen was already past him. He could have held him up a little bit longer and maybe Hamilton could have won in the end. So basically Max caught up to Lewis and Max won the race. Then round 8 and 9 was a double header at Austria, and at both of these races one of the biggest talking points was George Russell. He got into the top 10 at both Grand Prix in a Williams. That was amazing to me. Whenever he got into that top 10, I was rooting for him. But unfortunately in both circumstances he lost out. At the first round at Austria, George was in the top 10, but he had a problem, so he pitted, and the pit stop was quite long. You can see the pit crew, they were working on his car, trying to fix some things, and he retired the car. So he obviously had a problem. I think he would have had a good chance of staying in the points. He had a really good start, but unfortunately that's just George's bad luck. And then at the second round at Austria, he was in the top 10 again, but he lost out to Fernando Alonso towards the end of the race, and he ended up finishing P11. So he just missed it. I was so upset because I was just Fernando, really? You've won championships. What is 1 point going to do for you? But I do understand it is racing, that's just how it works, But yeah, I was very upset when Fernando overtook George because I really wanted him to stay in the top 10, but nonetheless George drove a really good race, and honestly it just proves to me that he deserves to be in that Mercedes seat, but I will talk about that a little bit later. And then another recurring theme throughout both Austrian Grand Prix is Verstappen's winning. So he won at both Austrian Grand Prix, and it was pretty easy for him. I mean, I wouldn't say it wasn't easy for him, but he didn't have much competition with Mercedes, and Perez wasn't really fighting for the win, to be honest. In terms of battles for the win, these two Grand Prix were definitely the most boring in terms of that. So at the first Austrian Grand Prix of 2021, the main man basically of that particular race was Leclerc. He overtook a lot of different people. He made some very risky moves, very close to causing many collisions. I think he was also responsible, well, not responsible, but he basically caused Gasly to retire from the race. But nonetheless, Leclerc still got driver of the day. So yeah, he did a lot of overtaking, which kept the race interesting. That was literally the only interesting thing about that race. Everything else was pretty boring. The second round at Austria was thankfully a lot more exciting, even though the battle for the win was also non-existent. The midfield battles were very exciting. The main talking point of the second round at Austria was Lando Norris. He started P2 after qualifying in second place the day before, and he actually should have finished P2, to be honest, but he got a 5-second time penalty for forcing a driver off the track, which You know what, I'm not going to say anything. All I'm going to say is that he did not deserve that penalty. A lot of the penalties that took place at this particular race I don't think were deserved, but Lando got a 5-second time penalty which basically cost him P2, and Bottas got P2 by default in the pit lane. He overtook Lando in the pit lane after Lando took that 5-second time penalty. So Lando could have finished in P2. He had the car to do so, but yeah, Bottas ended up getting P2 and Lando finished P3, which is still a very good result for McLaren, so he should be happy with that result. So before I get into what to look forward to at the Silverstone Grand Prix, I just want to touch on a few of the main talking points of the 9 rounds. And these talking points are the things that'll carry on for the rest of the season. So the first talking point is obviously the fight for the championship between Verstappen and Hamilton. So yeah, there's quite a big battle between the two at the moment. Verstappen is leading the championship by quite some margin, I would say, but it's not impossible to catch up for Hamilton, so I think he's still in the running. At Austria, I think Red Bull brought a lot of upgrades, so I think that's probably one of the reasons why Mercedes weren't able to fight for the win at those particular races, because Mercedes haven't brought any upgrades in the 9 rounds. I believe they're bringing upgrades at round 10, which is Silverstone, so we'll see if they will be able to catch up to Red Bull and keep the championship fight going, both constructors and drivers wise, but we'll see how that goes. The next big battle between constructors is Ferrari and McLaren. McLaren seem to be on top form. If I'm honest with you, I think they'll win this battle. I could be wrong, maybe Ferrari have something hidden in their back pocket, but at the moment McLaren is looking a lot stronger, and I think they will probably finish P3 in the constructors. Then another battle that I've noticed on track is the 2 Ferrari drivers, Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc. I don't think many people expected Carlos to be up there with Charles, because Charles is such a highly rated driver. He is seen as one of the best on the grid at the moment. So I don't think people were expecting Carlos to be basically on par with Charles. And I think that really just shows how much of an underrated driver Carlos is. People sort of underestimated his ability and they weren't expecting him to be as good as he is performing in the Ferrari. But he's definitely proving to be deserving of that seat. And then there are 3 drivers on the track at the moment that I think are performing very, very well, namely Pierre Gasly, Sebastian Vettel, and George Russell. So I think they are performing really well in the car that they're currently in. Gasly, especially in qualifying, has been doing really well. I think he's qualified P6 at almost all of the races so far, and he got on the podium at Baku as well, so he is doing very well in that team. And then Sebastian Vettel is making a comeback from last year when he was in the Ferrari. He did horribly in the Ferrari last year. He finished out of the points quite often, which is not expected of a Ferrari driver. But yeah, Sebastian Vettel has definitely made a comeback in the Aston Martin. He's performing really well. He got on the podium in Baku, so he is performing a lot better in the Aston Martin, and it's nice to see that he's enjoying his time a lot more in Formula 1, because I don't think he was enjoying it much last year. And then the last driver that I mentioned, George Russell, I've mentioned him many, many times, but I think this is a fitting time to start as this is moving into Silverstone. There are a lot of rumors that Mercedes will announce George to be their second driver alongside Lewis Hamilton for the 2022 season. And it's predicted that they'll announce this at Silverstone, seeming as it'll be an all-British lineup. So hopefully that happens. Crossing my fingers. I don't want to get my hopes up too much, because I think they could easily keep Bottas. He's performed relatively well in the car, but he's just had a lot of bad luck at the past few races, and that's why he's not particularly high up on the drivers' standings at the moment. So I can see why Mercedes would still keep Valtteri, but I can also see why they would bring in George, and I'm hoping that they will. I feel like he deserves an opportunity in a new car. He's been with Williams for 3 years now, and I think he definitely deserves to be in a championship a potential championship winning car. So yeah, I hope he gets the opportunity, and I'm hoping, crossing my fingers, that it'll be announced at Silverstone. So another thing to look forward to at the Silverstone Grand Prix this weekend is the introduction to the sprint races that Formula One is attempting this year. They're doing this at 3 tracks this season, and the first one is at Silverstone this weekend. I was quite excited about this new idea that Formula One had for the sprint races, but the more I look at it, the more I'm like, it's not gonna work. And I'm starting to see why a lot of people aren't really looking forward to the idea of the sprint race. So basically what's happening this weekend is there's going to be a practice on the Friday, and qualifying will then take place after that practice. So the qualifying that normally takes place on the Saturday is now taking place on the Friday. Then on the Saturday, I believe there's one more practice, and then after that practice is the sprint race. So the sprint race is a third of a full race. So let's say, no, I can't do maths, wait. Let's say a track has 60 laps. If it's a sprint race, it'll be 20 laps. The main things to take from the sprint race is basically that there's no mandatory pit stop, so you don't have to pit for a fresh set of tires. And basically, the podium finishes are the ones that will end up getting points. So if you don't finish on the podium, you don't get any points. So the person who finishes in 3rd place will receive 1 point, 2nd place will receive 2 points, and the winner of the sprint race will receive 3 points. If more points were offered, I think more drivers would take bigger risks to try and win the race. But yeah, the 3 points for a win is kind of disappointing. So I don't think the sprint races are going to work unless they implement more points. So basically what the sprint race does, the sprint race takes place on the Saturday, and the sprint race results will define the grid positions for the official race the next day. So the qualifying from that Friday will determine the grid for the sprint race on the Saturday, and the results from the sprint race will determine the grid for the full race on the Sunday. So yeah, I'm trying to keep an open mind, because a lot of people are not looking forward to the sprint races. I'm gonna give it a chance. Let's see how it goes. Who knows, maybe this will be the new format. And then the final thing that we can look forward to at Silverstone is the full capacity. Obviously, I'm living in South Africa. I'm not going to watch the race, so I don't really have anything to look forward to. But the people living in the UK and the people that have money to travel and go to the Formula One races can enjoy the Silverstone Grand Prix at full capacity. So it's a big step forward for Formula One, and it's good to see that the world has started slowly going back to normal. Obviously things are not the same here in South Africa, but there in Europe and those places, they seem to be moving forward and moving on from this whole COVID-19 pandemic. So that's good for them. So that's it for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, please give it a big thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button down below. If you want to get notified whenever I upload a new video, you can also hit the bell icon next to the subscribe button. Thank you guys so much for watching, and also thank you for being patient with me. I know it's been a long time since I've uploaded a video, so thank you for waiting. Thank you for not losing hope, because it has been a while. And I also just want to be honest here with term 3 and term 4 coming up, the second half of this year basically, with prelims and finals coming up. It is going to be challenging for me to make videos, but I'll try my absolute best and I'll just take it as it comes. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you when I see you. Bye!